When I walked into the office, the chatter died like someone hit mute. No words, no smiles. Just that tight, humming silence that lives between people who think they're hiding something well. My chair carried someone else's jacket, my mug was crusted with old coffee, and my monitor wallpaper had been changed to a blank gray screen. I could almost smell the pettiness, the kind that seeps through the seams of polite emails and forced good mornings. They'd decided to erase me with whispers, screenshots, and cheap digital cruelty, memes behind locked channels, a peach emoji here, a knowing smirk there, not big enough to report, but sharp enough to bleed you slow. I felt the sting, sure, but under it was something colder and steadier, an intention. The jacket on my chair stayed like a flag, a declaration that I no longer belonged. I didn't touch it, just slid my laptop bag onto the floor and kept my movements calm, deliberate. Across the open space, no one looked up, not even Liam, especially not Liam. I went to the kitchen hoping for coffee, maybe a human word. But Brent and Kayla were already there, standing by the water cooler like statues pretending to drink. When they saw me, Brent snorted, tried to swallow it back with water, and nearly choked. Kayla stared into her cup like it held the answers. "Morning," I said. No reply. The air was sticky and cold at the same time, like breathing through glass. I filled my cup and left, the weight of their silence pressing between my shoulders. At my desk, I pretended to work. Slack pinged. A notification from the team channel. One message, deleted. But I caught the ghost of it in the preview bar. Liam. Did you all see her Insta from last summer? Peach wasn't an accident. A pulse of heat hit my chest. Deleted or not, it had done its job. I clicked through my calendar. Stand up in 20 minutes. Room 4A. I checked the booking tablet outside the room, and my name glared back, except someone had edited it. Under my name, a peach emoji and one word. Private. I stood there longer than I should have, forcing my face to stay neutral. Every instinct wanted to rip that screen off the wall, but I didn't. I just exhaled, slow, and went back to my desk. When I sat down, Rachel, my desk neighbor for 2 years, the one who'd helped me build IKEA shelves after my move, suddenly looked very busy. "Rach," I said quietly, "did something happen?" She froze, eyes fixed on her monitor. "I'm on deadline," she murmured. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That was when I understood. Whatever they were saying about me, it had already reached the point of contamination. It wasn't rumor anymore. It was infection. And nobody wanted to catch it. The whisper had become a kind of policy, unspoken but enforced by every sidelong glance and forced silence. By 5 o'clock, my hands were trembling under the desk, though I kept typing, pretending I still belonged. The screen blurred as I read the last commit message from Liam. My stomach knotted, not from the message, but from the memory of his voice when he'd called me partner during those late deployments. The office emptied one by one. My reflection in the window looked foreign, eyes too sharp, mouth too still. Then a new message popped up on my screen, a private DM. "Liam, can we talk?" No punctuation, no explanation, just that. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For a second, I imagined the next steps, the denial, the gaslighting, the practiced charm. I could almost hear the tone he'd use. But instead of replying, I took a screenshot, saved it to a hidden folder labeled Mute. The lights above flickered as the cleaning crew rolled in. The hum of the servers filled the quiet. I finished my cold coffee, stood, and took one last look at the empty desks, the jacket now gone, the air still heavy with something unspoken. They thought I'd break under silence, but they forgot something important. Silence isn't absence. It's preparation. And I was done being quiet. In the elevator, a woman from another team dragged a finger through my hair. "You've got something sticky," she said. Not in a kind way, not in a helpful way, in a smirking, performative way, like she wanted to see if I'd flinch. I didn't. But my scalp tingled all the way back to my desk. The smell hit me before I even sat down. Faintly sweet. Artificial. I turned my chair and saw it. A thick amber sheen on the backrest, glinting under the lights. I reached out, touched the top edge, and my fingers came back slick and sticky. Syrup. Someone had poured syrup on my chair. It was petty, it was targeted, and it was undeniable. I walked straight to the restroom, washed my hands until they stung, looked in the mirror and told myself to breathe. This wasn't a bad day. This was evidence. Back at my desk, I pulled out my phone and opened the camera. I took photos, chair, hands, timestamp on my monitor in the background. I opened a new folder on my desktop, Incident Year 01, and then I clicked the meeting room tablet again. Same peach emoji, same word under my name, private. I screen capped that too. When I clicked over to Slack, something new had appeared. It wasn't in a public channel, it wasn't in the DMs. It was in a hidden locked group called the Scur Friday Club, which shouldn't have been visible at all. Except someone messed up the permissions for half a second, and in that second, I saw it. A meme. My silhouette from behind. My posture unmistakable. The caption? Guess who's thirsty? Under it, a chain of GIFs, peach, webcam, moaning emoji, 17 reactions, all anonymous, all laughing. And then, just like that, it vanished. Permissions restored, access revoked, like it was never there. But I had already hit Command+Shift+4, save the image, save the user list while it was still visible. I didn't recognize all the usernames, but I recognized enough. I renamed the file Incident EO22 PNG. I kept the folder open in the corner of my screen while I worked. Every tab I clicked felt heavier than it should have. Every Slack notification now a potential blade. The office air had that brittle feeling before a lightning storm. Conversations dropped when I passed by, like a switch was being flipped. At 2:46 p.m., I got an email from IT. Reminder: screen recording or photographing internal systems violates company policy. Please ensure all recordings are approved. No context, no name, just a nudge, just enough to make it clear they knew I was watching. I stared at the message, reread it 5 times, and felt that sticky feeling on my scalp again. It wasn't syrup this time. It was power. Power they thought I didn't have. I closed the email, pulled up the screen recording tool, hovered, then hit start recording anyway. My mouse moved deliberately, highlighting Slack, reloading the booking tablet UI, even hovering over the team calendar where a check-in had appeared under a recurring Friday event. I clicked open the invite. Private attendees only. I hit record again. Save that clip. Incident003.move. I started a second folder, Policy Bar Research. I opened tabs, state laws about digital harassment, workplace retaliation, NDA loopholes, metadata preservation. Every click steadied my hands, every saved file pulled me back to solid ground. Around 4:11 p.m., the power flickered once, briefly, monitors blinked, lights dipped, the office stilled. When the systems rebooted, my desktop background had changed. It wasn't a photo I recognized, just white text on black, a system font. Viewer discretion advised. No explanation, no window open. Just that phrase burned across the screen, as if someone had slipped a hand inside my machine and left a calling card. I checked my settings, my login history, no new sessions, no password change. But I knew what I saw. Someone wanted me to know they had access, or had friends who did. I reset my password, then changed my desktop back to the original blue. It felt symbolic, like reclaiming a square inch of land. But something darker had started to settle into my spine. It wasn't just harassment now. It wasn't even just humiliation. This was escalation. Someone, or several someones, were weaponizing the digital walls around me. The sticky syrup was one thing. This was intrusion, violation, a message without a voice. And still, no one looked me in the eye. Not even when we passed in the kitchen. Not even when I said, "Have a good night." They don't need to say a rumor anymore. You just forward it. That night, as I packed up, a new Slack DM arrived. From an unknown user. No profile picture. No alias. It just said, "Careful who you record. Policy works both ways." I didn't reply. I didn't flinch. I clicked Save Chat. Dragged it to Incident 004. Then I sat there, staring at the peach emoji still glowing next to my name on the room tablet. The kind of joke they think won't stick. The kind of joke they think will slide by unnoticed. But I was done playing unnoticed, because consent doesn't survive in a forward, and neither does silence. Liam shrugged like we were just talking about old college hookups. We were close once. I met his eyes, steady. I never consented to publication, not ever. He blinked, forced a laugh. God, it's not like that. It was just between us. I mean, look, maybe I sent something once, but everyone shares stuff like that. You know the culture. The culture, I repeated flatly, like it was some mythic fog that excused criminal behavior. He was trying to rewrite the story, paint our past as mutual, maybe even romantic. But I remembered the night I sent that photo, blurred, dim, without my face, back when I thought he was safe. Back when I thought private meant private. Now that same image was a Slack meme, a reaction emoji, a weapon. By the time I left the impromptu hallway chat, I knew what I had to do. My stomach was hollow, but my focus had never been sharper. I opened a private browser and searched. Non-consensual distribution of intimate images, my state law. The statute loaded in 2 seconds. The language was precise. Dissemination of sexually explicit material without express consent of the individual depicted. I copied it, pasted it into a new doc. Title, Timeline of Events. I listed the earliest signs. June 9th, changed room tablet, plus private. June 11th, syrup on chair. June 12th, hidden Slack channel meme, silhouette image. June 13th, viewer discretion wallpaper overwrite. June 14th, DM from anonymous account, careful who you record. June 15th, Liam confrontation, quote, we were close, once. I added file IDs, links to screenshots, video captures. I even archived my screen recordings onto a USB and stored it in a drawer under my desk, tucked inside a tin of loose tea. My hands were shaking when I labeled it Jasmine Reserve, but my labeling system was solid. Then I opened a new doc titled, Consent is not archived by a forward. It would become my evidence list. It would become my shield. And maybe, if this went where I thought it would, my sword. That afternoon, I clicked over to my desktop and stared. My background had changed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was the actual image. The one I had sent to Liam that summer night. Blurred. Dim. Cropped. But mine. They'd put it up like a banner, not saved to my files, not in my downloads. It was baked into my desktop background settings, embedded. My mouth went dry. Someone had admin access, or someone they knew did. I changed it back. Again. Disconnected from Wi-Fi. Disconnected from the network entirely. Then I called IT, not to report anything. I wasn't stupid. Not yet. Just a routine check. Noticed some sync issues. Wondering if my login has any duplicate sessions? The tech, a guy named Rich, blinked behind his glasses. Nope. Not seeing anything active but your station. Could be a cached artifact. Sometimes these systems glitch out after updates. I nodded. Right. Of course. I thanked him, walked back to my desk, and started another document. Admin access timeline. If they thought I was going to wait for them to escalate to full-blown humiliation, they were wrong. They'd already stepped over the line. This wasn't just harassment. It wasn't even just hostile work environment. This was a digital sex crime. The worst part? I could feel the rationalizations thick in the air. People share stuff. It's not malicious. It's just a joke. Don't take it personally. You sent it once, so technically... But every technically was a paper cut on my skin. Every "it's not that bad" was someone stapling my consent to the break room wall. By 4:10, I had called 3 attorneys. 2 never picked up. 1 offered a callback sometime next week. So I searched for local organizations that specialized in digital abuse. Found one. Booked a consult. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Before I left for the day, I packed the USB drive into a Ziploc, placed it in my tote, and zipped it shut. I looped my badge lanyard around my wrist as I walked out. At the door, I passed Liam again. He gave a nod, confident, assured. The nod of a man who thought the past was his to reframe. I didn't respond, just stared through him, because what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had already begun the process of reporting him. Not to HR, not to IT, but to someone whose job wasn't to mediate feelings, to someone with a badge and subpoena power. And the first thing I'd say in that intake meeting? This wasn't romance. It was a crime. If they wanted water cooler content, I whispered to the empty restroom stall, breath fogging up the metal divider, I'll give them a case. It wasn't bravado. It was focus. Razor thin, held together by muscle memory and caffeine. I had just come down from a silent panic attack. No tears, no shaking sobs, just my hands tremoring so hard I couldn't open my lip balm, and my lungs stuck halfway through an inhale. But my voice wouldn't shake. Not for them. I walked back to my desk and began a clean sweep. No tabs open, no Slack pings, no distractions. Just one job. Make the digital trail undeniable. I copied all original screenshots and videos onto an offline drive. Computed SHA-256 hashes for every file, so no one could claim they were altered. Saved the hashes to a spreadsheet with date and time of creation. Then I emailed that file to myself from a personal account with a subject line that read, "If you're reading this, they escalated." Attached were zipped archives labeled Incident NU01 through Incident NU04. I saved copies to 2 places, a cold USB stored in my safe at home and a cloud backup only I had access to. Then I printed a hard copy timeline, clean font, double-spaced, names redacted for now. Finally, I set the files to read-only and disabled remote access. It wasn't just about preservation anymore. It was about preparing for deletion. If they tried to wipe this, I'd have 4 redundancies waiting. Then I did something harder. I booked an intake consult with Harbor Light Digital Abuse Response, a local support center that specialized in NDII, harassment, and cyberstalking. The intake form asked questions like, do you feel safe at work? Is the perpetrator in a position of power? Are you being retaliated against for resisting or reporting? Every answer clicked out of me like a trigger pull. And then, for the first time, I wrote his full name in a field that read, "Who is causing the harm?" I typed, "Liam Wester, Senior DevOps Engineer." And just below that, known participants or witnesses. I typed 2 names. I didn't want to, but they giggled when I walked by. They reacted with the peach emoji. One of them had forwarded the calendar screenshot to a private thread. Cowards by silence are still cowards. I hit submit. Seconds later, I got a confirmation email with the subject: "Your appointment is scheduled. Your information is secure." It was the first email all week that didn't make my stomach drop. Then something strange happened. Maya from SecOps, the quiet analyst with the permanent hoodie and soft-spoken voice, stopped me in the hallway. "Freeze your logs," she whispered, like it was a secret code. "I'll preserve admin history on the server side, but you have to flag the session from yesterday manually before the backup rotation kicks it." I blinked. "You know, I saw what they did to your room label. That's not a user-accessible field." I swallowed. "You think someone's covering for them?" "I think you're 2 steps ahead of them. Keep going." I opened my mouth to thank her, but she was already gone, faded into the stream of bodies walking toward the snack bar like nothing had happened. Back at my desk, something new was waiting. On the bulletin board next to the break room, where we usually post lost badges and community events, someone had pinned a second ID card. It was a duplicate of mine. Same name, same photo. But someone had drawn a crude peach emoji next to my face in Sharpie and punched a pin through the forehead. The title line said, "Fun only, access, all floors." It was supposed to be a joke, but jokes don't bleed this slow. I took a photo. Saved it. Incident05.jpg. Then I took the badge down and tossed it into the shred bin. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I did book another backup consult. Because if Maya from security whispered to me, it meant I wasn't the only one watching this unfold. People were noticing, even if they weren't speaking yet. They will. And when they do, I want them to see every timestamp, every digital footprint, every Slack message, every folder export, every alias they thought would protect them. This isn't just a personal war now. This is forensic. And I'm building the skeleton's bones. I walked into the manager's office holding a folder thick with screenshots, logs, and documentation, everything you'd need to prove a hostile environment. And yet, the first words out of my mouth weren't harassment or violated policy. They were, "Let's talk level and promo." My boss, Tina, head of engineering ops, blinked like I'd slapped her. "You're asking about promotion right now?" I slid the folder across the table. "No, I'm showing you why we're already late." She hesitated, hands hovering above the folder like it might be radioactive. I didn't move. Let the silence hang. Let her feel the weight of what it meant for someone to stop asking for permission and start asking for terms. She opened the folder, thumbed past the first page, then stopped. A screenshot. Slack. Peach emoji. My name. Her mouth pressed into a line. "Is this recent?" she asked. "It's ongoing." Tina tapped the desk with her pen, slow. "This is complicated, timing-wise." I nodded, cool. "Sure, let me guess. There are reputational nuances, right?" She looked up sharply. "You've been here long enough to know these things ripple." "The wave started," I said, voice flat, "the moment someone hit send." She sighed. "Look, we'll open a 30-day internal review, but we have to follow protocol." Of course they do. The same protocol that HR clings to when they need time to polish statements, gather risk assessments, calculate what's cheaper, accountability, or severance. "Just promise me," Tina said. "Don't post anything on social. We'll handle it internally." "Sure," I said, "as long as you define handle." She didn't respond. The next day, HR emailed me the official note. "We're initiating an internal investigation. You may be contacted by assigned reviewers. Please refrain from discussing details with peers until the review concludes. A gag order, disguised as guidance. By noon, I already knew the process would move slower than rot. But the damage was faster. At 3:14 p.m., I received a complaint forwarded from legal. A client, yes, a client, had reported a meme circulating in an external Slack community. A photo, my back, blurred. A link to our company's public GitHub and a peach reaction trailing in the comments. My stomach twisted. The infection wasn't just internal anymore. It had leaked. I added it to the timeline. Incident 006. Client Slack meme. And suddenly, I wasn't just a liability to my team. I was a risk to the brand. They'd pay attention now. But not because they cared about me, because someone outside the firewall had seen what they let fester inside it. The next day, an anonymous Slack channel spun up. Objectivity. At first, I thought it was about code reviews, but the second message was this. She sent them first. Guess she didn't think anyone would save receipts. My chest went cold. They were flipping the narrative, turning consent into complication, weaponizing the very vulnerability they'd mocked. Someone was laying the groundwork to reframe me as the aggressor, the manipulator, the woman scorned. And Liam? He didn't need to say a word. His silence was the narrative. I watched the emoji reactions roll in. A popcorn. A thinking face. One. Passive aggression has a smell, like hot metal before a fire. That night, I sat at my desk long after everyone left. My screen glowed with the folders I'd renamed: evidence root, policy breach, timeline threats. I didn't cry. I archived the chat, saved it, then locked the folders with a password based on my grandmother's birth year. She survived a war. I was surviving a smear. A soft ping hit my inbox. Internal legal. We've been informed the subject of your complaint has retained legal counsel. They've submitted a statement alleging mutual exchange of materials and asserting implied consent. Please prepare a response to accompany your evidence. Implied consent. That phrase was going to haunt me. The truth was, I had sent one photo. Once. And it wasn't graphic. But it didn't matter. Because in their hands, the concept of consent was gray, convenient, flexible. But mine wasn't. My consent was clear. My no was silent at first. Then digital. Now legal. I pulled open a new doc, titled it, Implied Consent is a Myth. The first line I wrote was the one that sat under my tongue all week. HR silence is a tool too. And I was done being a passive variable in someone else's equation. Because if they wanted to ask who I thought I was, here's the answer. The one with the receipts. The one with the clock ticking. And the one who doesn't forget. Courtrooms are colder than server rooms. I wore a hoodie under my blazer, sneakers on my feet, and a silence in my chest that had stopped trying to tremble. When the clerk called my name, I stood. Calm. Steady. The kind of quiet you earn after screaming into every institutional void and hearing nothing back. My voice didn't shake when I said it. Requesting a no-contact protective order for digital harassment and non-consensual image distribution. The judge didn't flinch. He'd seen worse. But I hadn't. Not until I started tracking the damage file by file, silence by silence. The petition had been filed last Friday. I had to walk it in myself. The intake officer at the precinct had read my evidence like it was a puzzle with half the pieces scorched. You said this was through work? Yes. You said there's a private Slack? Yes. And he changed your desktop wallpaper? Yes. Twice. Her lips pressed together, not in disbelief, but in recognition, like she'd heard this shape of pain before, just not this cleanly documented. Who else is involved? She asked. I gave 3 names. not all of them active participants. But passive silence is a structure too. She took my statement, logged my drive, made a note. You've already preserved the evidence. Multiple backups, hashes too. Her eyebrows lifted, impressed or cautious, I couldn't tell. 3 days later, the DA's office scheduled an intake consult. They pulled in a digital crimes liaison. He asked real questions, took real notes, and said the one phrase that finally unclenched something in my ribs. This falls under our statute. You're not overreacting. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. The temporary order was submitted for review Monday. Today, Wednesday at 9:03 a.m., the court stamped it. Protective order, temporary, service required, duration, 14 days pending review. I walked out with the copy in my hands. I scanned it on the office copier, saved a PDF, dropped it in a new folder, legal PPO documents. Then I called my attorney. Yes, I had one now. She wasn't flashy. She didn't have a TV commercial, but her voice was clean and sharp, like fresh paper cuts. Next step, she said, is a cease and desist. Preservation letter goes to the company, to Liam, and to anyone we name in the timeline. What about HR? I asked. They'll receive a version, but let's be honest, you're not their priority. I already knew that. The HR business partner hadn't replied to my last email. The one with the subject line, policy breach escalation, evidence included. At 2:11 p.m., I got a text from a number not saved in my phone. Liam, let's not make a show. This got out of hand. It was a prank. A prank? I stared at that word so long the letters started to float. I typed back, a prank is flour in a hairdryer. This is a felony. I didn't hit send. Instead, I screenshot it. Saved it. Incident 007JPG. He was trying to soften the frame, dial the heat down, recast me as someone who couldn't take a joke. It was a final pivot, a plea disguised as reason. I didn't reply, because I wasn't here to negotiate a boundary. I was here to enforce one. By 4 p.m., the company was served. My attorney emailed proof of service and copied me. Attached was a letter with 3 sentences that now live inside my bloodstream. Our client will no longer tolerate the unauthorized use, replication, or distribution of private content. Immediate internal action is expected. This matter has entered legal jurisdiction. That night, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in weeks. Nadia. Former colleague. UX lead. Someone who once covered for me during a dentist appointment without asking questions. Her message said, "Hey, I saw. Are you okay? I don't want to assume, but I'm here." I stared at the screen. I wanted to answer. I didn't. Not because I didn't care, but because the cost of trusting anyone right now felt steep. An hour later, another message popped up. Not from a friend. From someone I thought was. Mira, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It's not helping anyone, just saying. I read it twice. Archived it. Didn't reply. Didn't engage. Because silence can be fuel, but sometimes it's armor too. At 9:03 p.m., I refreshed my inbox. New mail, subject, proof of service, Liam Wester, from the Sheriff's Department. PDF attached, status, delivered, 21003, signed. I exhaled for the first time all day. Not relief, not closure, just space. A pocket of air I hadn't felt in weeks. Liam had been served. Now the countdown had started. 14 days until the hearing. Let him squirm, let them all watch. Because the quiet girl with the folders and the backup logs, she wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was issuing order, all hands meeting, calendar invite stamped urgent, every camera a black tile, a sea of corporate absence staring back at me. I clicked join with my mic off. HR had scheduled the session, but everyone knew why we were here. The air was thick with it. a pressure building behind the screens. Tina cleared her throat on camera, lips pulled into the kind of smile you wear at funerals. "Before we start," she said, "we want to acknowledge some recent tensions." Tensions. She looked off screen, probably to someone from legal sitting just out of view. "We're committed to fostering a respectful, inclusive culture," she continued. "There will be zero tolerance for inappropriate behavior or breaches of professional conduct." It was the kind of corporate statement built for plausible deniability. No names, no details, nothing that could be quoted back. I hovered over the raise hand button. My thumb tapped the edge of my spacebar once, twice. Then I clicked. Tina paused, nodded. "Go ahead." I unmuted. "My name's on the screen," I said, "so I won't pretend this isn't personal." The chat window pinged with a red dot. Messages incoming. I ignored them. "I was told more than once not to trigger a wave." I looked directly into the camera. "Well, the wave is here. Its name is non-consensual distribution." Someone's camera flicked on, then off. A mistake or a flinch. This wasn't gossip. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was digital assault. It was coordinated, and it was targeted. My heart beat like a war drum in my chest, but my voice, solid, steady. And I'm done watching leadership respond with soft language while women get turned into memes. A pause. Nothing moved. Then one small message in the chat. A whisper in a void. "Thank you for saying this." Another followed. "Here for you." "Been there." And then, right beneath that, a single emoji. A signal, not support. Surveillance. The room didn't erupt. No one clapped. But the silence? It shifted. It was no longer compliance. It was witness. By 2 p.m., Liam's Slack profile vanished from the directory. By 3:17, his GitHub access was revoked. By 4:00, someone in finance confirmed to Maya, quietly, over Signal, that his final paycheck was marked termination for cause. They moved fast. Not out of morality. Out of necessity. But the silence didn't end with Liam. At 5:23, legal pinged me directly. He's retained counsel. They're claiming mutual sharing, mutual understanding. Prepare discovery. There it was. The pushback. The rewiring of history. I opened my archive. Created a new folder. Discovery, statements. Started logging everything. Dates, texts, memos. The way they smiled too long when I walked into the room. The way the meme disappeared minutes after I screen captured it. The way Rachel stopped looking at me the moment I said, boundary. Every silence is a data point. Every omission is a strategy. I added a document titled, "They Didn't Laugh Alone." Because when something goes viral inside a workplace, it's never just one person. It's the ones who forward. The ones who react, the ones who say nothing, even as the damage spreads. At 6:07 p.m., I closed my laptop. The office was quiet, just the hum of machines and the scent of cleaning spray. I passed Liam's desk. It had already been wiped, empty. But someone, probably facilities, left a box behind. On top, his off-boarded ID card. I didn't touch it, didn't need to. Because this wasn't about triumph. This was about policy. And the next time someone sends a joke, they'll remember what came next. Not applause, just consequences. If they want terms, I told legal on the Zoom call, we'll define them. The silence that followed was thick with hesitation, the kind that lives between risk assessments and optics spreadsheets. Finally, Jenna from compliance spoke. "What exactly are you proposing?" I didn't blink. Zero tolerance policy, not the watered-down suggestion box version, with teeth, with training, with actual consequences. Another pause, another awkward shuffle, but nobody said no. The audit had begun. After Liam's dismissal, the company opened an external review to evaluate systemic issues in culture and compliance. Translation: they were trying to contain the fire without admitting they left gas on the floor, but the logs couldn't lie. Maya had preserved the admin history. The playback showed it all: who accessed the image folders, who reacted to what and when. Every message, every GIF, every timestamp down to the second. I saw the list, saw the names. One of them was Kayla, another was Brent. Not surprised, just confirmed. I presented a proposal, the 24-hour protocol, a checklist for digital harm reports, built like a deployment runbook. No excuses, no discretion games. 1. Freeze all related logs and internal messaging history. 2. Notify security and legal. HR is looped, but not the sole responder. 3. Preserve devices. No auto wipes, no upgrades. 4. Support the targeted employee immediately. PTO option, counseling, secure reporting channels, no contact badge blocks. 5. Escalate for impact, not intent. 6. Track forwarding behavior and secondary involvement. Passive isn't innocent. 7. Mandate training for all managers on digital boundary ethics. 8. Public outcome summary, anonymized but real. They wanted to redact. I insisted we release it internally, unredacted. With my initials at the bottom of the playbook. I didn't need a statue. I needed a system. They pushed back. That's not standard, I said. Neither is what happened to me. That afternoon, the first consequence hit the broader circle. Kayla got an HR letter in her inbox. Failure to report known misconduct. Brent lost his bonus. Involvement in derogatory digital communications. The one who dropped the peach emoji on the room booking tablet? Suspended without pay. It confirmed he accessed admin fields from a ghost terminal after hours. The smile he wore in every stand-up disappeared the next day. Meanwhile, Maya sent me a zip, encrypted, private. Inside, logs from 01:12 a.m. 3 weeks ago. Liam had exported a folder labeled Personal Talk Share. The list of file names was brutal. Some had my initials. Others were labeled by room numbers, meeting times. Not just me. Not just me. I froze. There were at least 3 other women. Possibly more. One was just M.A. I knew it was Marcy, from legal. Another? Henry. Timestamp 773. Quiet guy. Product team. He was quiet. Married. Kept to himself. This wasn't just about humiliation anymore. This was a network. A fucking pattern. I created a new doc, sharedawkextraction.log, logged every file name, every timestamp, cross-referenced meetings. This wasn't speculation. This was code, digital DNA. I sent a message to Jenna from compliance. Subject, formal addendum, repeat pattern of digital harm. Body, this isn't about intent. This is infrastructure. And I'm not the only one. She called me 5 minutes later. You realize, if this becomes criminal discovery, I cut her off. Then it's finally where it belongs. We met at 4 p.m. to update the official policy language. Zero tolerance now meant immediate removal of access. Reported behavior made transparent in quarterly audits, mandatory annual digital boundaries training, a disciplinary rubric tied to bonuses, promotions, and contract renewals. For the first time in the company's history, silence would cost money. At 5:38 p.m., I walked past the break room. The bulletin board was clean. The fake ID was gone. The jokes had stopped. Not out of respect, out of risk. I took the long way to my desk. Liam's name was off every repo, every Slack thread, every project file. But his legacy? Still bleeding through every scared smile, every averted glance. I wasn't afraid of being hated. I was afraid of being erased. And now I was policy. The panel was titled Women in Tech, beyond the hashtag. I almost didn't say yes, not because I was afraid, but because I was tired. But when I stepped onto that stage, standing between a startup founder with pastel slides and a data scientist from Berlin who used statistics like armor, I felt the air shift. Not tense, not hostile. Ready. I didn't open with a story. I opened with a fact. My body is not a corporate meme. The silence that followed wasn't discomfort. It was attention. I continued. Consent isn't gray. It's not assumed. It's not implied. It doesn't hide in Slack threads or behind emoji reactions. You either have it or you don't. Someone in the front row closed their laptop. Someone else started typing faster. I told them the truth, not the sanitized one, not the bullet points legal liked. The real one. How I was made into a warning. How the Whisper network became a feature, not a bug. How consent was forwarded like a chain email with no origin, and how silence is not neutral. I didn't cry. I didn't pause. I didn't name him, because this wasn't about him anymore. It was about the room, the policy, the pattern. At the end of the panel, a line formed. People didn't just want selfies. They wanted to say something. The fourth woman in line hesitated before speaking. Short brown hair, nervous smile. Her badge said A. Soto, UX. I laughed, she said quietly. With my eyes, I didn't forward anything, but I didn't stop it. I'm learning. I'm sorry. I nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. It was risk recognition. She spoke. That mattered. Later that evening, I received 2 emails. The first from legal. We are notifying you that criminal charges have been filed related to your original report. Civil suit preparation is underway. Charges include unauthorized distribution and digital misconduct. Thank you for your cooperation. I reread it 3 times. Criminal charges. The words finally had teeth. The second email was internal, from Jenna. Subject line, discovery launch. Body, subpoena issued. External counsel for Liam and co-defendants has been notified. Discovery begins Monday. That's when the tide turned. HR, legal, SecOps. They weren't managing me anymore. They were following me. I opened the evidence folder. One image stared back. A Slack post, blurred but legible. Liam's caption, my shadow, a laughing emoji. I printed it, folded it, slipped it into the back of my panel badge, not as a trophy, as a receipt. This wasn't vindication. It wasn't victory. It was the start of something better, something repeatable, something other women could point to and say, there, that's what happens when you name it. Because anonymity doesn't protect the harmed, it protects the harm. They tried to bury me in their humor, in their threads, in their plausible deniability. But I took every forward, every pixel, every sarcastic reaction, and I turned it into a rule book. This chapter ends with no screaming, no gavel, just quiet knowing. And one final phrase I said at the panel right before I stepped down, you don't have to heal quietly. You don't owe silence to people who turned your pain into entertainment. I said it without gore. I said it without whisper. And this time, they listened. The promo email was 3 lines long. No exclamation marks, no celebratory gifs, just black text on a white background. Effective immediately, redacted is promoted to senior lead, policy architecture and workplace risk. Please direct all inquiries regarding digital harm protocol to their office. Details to follow. I read it without smiling. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like a threshold. The door they slammed on me? I'd turned it into a blueprint. Liam, formally charged. The temporary protective order became permanent. His employment terminated for cause. His exit bonus clawed back. his professional membership with the industry org revoked. Co-conspirators didn't vanish, but their records weren't clean anymore. Kayla, final written warning. Brent, lost eligibility for leadership pipeline. The peach emoji vandal from facilities, fired. 2 contractors quietly dropped from renewal lists. The company, they codified the policy. Not just for PR, not buried in a Confluence page. Mandatory training, annual review, active harm triage system. The internal document lives on a server under the name Policy Zero Tolerance Runbook Final. At the bottom right corner of each page, my initials, anonymous to most. Not to me. On my last day in that role, before I transitioned to the policy division full-time, I peeled something off the office fridge. A sticker. NSFW. Laughter. I held it in my hand for a moment, then I slipped it into my evidence folder. Not as vengeance, as record. I walked past Liam's old desk, still empty, the chair slightly askew, as if someone stood up and never came back. On the desk, a cardboard box, untouched. No name, just a label that read, account off-boarded, no gloating, just air. And that's what revenge really is when it's done right. Not fire, not noise, just policy. You start with whisper networks. You end with architecture. They tried to make me a warning. I became the rule. And even with that, here's the truth. Winning doesn't erase scars. It doesn't make the memory quiet. It doesn't unsticky the chair or erase the image from the Slack cache. What it does is make the pain stop speaking for me. Because now, I speak. Not in a whisper, but in frameworks, in enforcement, in silence that costs them. And every woman who came after, who pings me on Signal or forwards a policy doc with my footer on it, knows the price of silence has changed. Because the next time they try to forward humiliation as a joke, they'll have to forward me with it.